Welcome to the Torah Sisters podcast. I'm Amy K. Gunther, and I love Yeshua, and I keep the Torah. I created Torah Sisters to help other like-minded women have a place to connect, grow, and be encouraged. Go to TorahSisters.com and sign up to get my free emails. And while you're there, also visit the store to subscribe to Torah Sisters magazine. You can also get free stuff and lots more. I hope that you feel at home here. Hey, it's Amy. Welcome back to the Torah Sisters podcast. I have on the line with me Kayte Abaffy. Kayte Abaffy is one of the producers of the Way documentary. She and her husband Luke have another book coming out called The Truth, and they are helping the world to understand what we're doing with this Torah stuff, and more importantly, why we're doing it. And so they are fairly well known in our Torah community because they have produced just really high quality, excellent materials that are God honoring and useful. And Kayte was one of the speakers at the last retreat. She'll be one of the workshop teachers at the upcoming Torah Sisters retreat. Stay tuned for details on that. And if you want to get details, make sure you get my emails. Go to TorahSisters.com and sign up to get emails so that you know when that is open, because that is where you can meet and hang out with Kayte and see all her goodies there. So, hey, Kayte, I'm going to let you talk. You sent me an email list of some things that you've been learning, and they are amazing, and the ladies are really going to enjoy hearing about it. So I'm just going to be quiet now and let you share with us.
Oh man, okay. Hi everybody, and thank you so much for letting me come on here and talk with you. I'm kind of just psyched to hang out for a little bit and share some stuff that I feel like God's like working with me on. And I guess I should just start by saying I'm a Torah Sisters fangirl and super fan, and I just like love all the amazing content that you're making for all of us ladies. We need fun lifestyle stuff. We need community. We have a lot of like bones and structure to our movement and rules, and we need like all the flesh on it that really like, fleshes out our lives and helps us connect to each other and like build memories around the stuff that we're all just starting to do. And it's just been a really big blessing for me, and I always like recommend it to ladies I meet and people who ask me questions, and so I'm thankful for what you're doing. Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, here we are. I'm Kayte, and thank you for that really nice intro. Goodness. I don't know where I should begin. I guess the theme of what I wanted to talk with you about was simplicity and embracing simplicity in your life. Luke and I live with our two little guys in a tiny house. So it's like 386 square feet, I guess. And Luke built it. When people find out that we live in a tiny house, they're like, oh my gosh, you must be like so organized and a minimalist and only have like, 3 plates. And I'm like, no, I'm a major maximalist. This is like a problem. If I'm making a meal, I like use each and every container to pre-chop the ingredients, like Food Network, and the whole counter's covered. I like want all the items and little things. It's hard for me to throw stuff out. My mom comes and helps me clean things, and she's like, she'll lift up an item and I have a whole story about it. And she's like, you sound like those people from Hoarders, So I am certainly not a minimalist, although we live in this tiny house, but I feel like God just puts you in the context that you need so that you can grow.
Yeah.
And so that's where I am.
Bummer.
So, yeah, I know. It's like, it's constantly just looking at everything in our house and like auditing, like, do we actually need this? Because the kids are getting bigger and like, we're going to need this space for legs. So I think that this wanting the simple kind of life journey, I'll say, started like a couple years after Luke and I got married. He had been like saving for a while to do a big trip like around the world. He wanted to travel. And so a few years after we got married, we were able to do this, and it was awesome because we were living in LA at the time. So actually traveling saved us money because we both worked online and we weren't paying our like LA rent, and we got to like see all this cool stuff while also saving money and also, being on the go. But we had to sell everything we owned down to like a backpack each. I think I kept like 2 cast iron skillets I'd gotten as wedding gifts, a food processor, and a sewing machine, pretty much. And I left that with friends in California, and then we just took off.
Wow.
Yeah, it was nuts. And the amazing thing that brought so much lightness to that trip was knowing we're going to be gone for almost a year. You can't buy anything. You
Right.
can't buy anything. I think the only things I brought home from that trip, which I still have, are like a pair of earrings from New Zealand, which I literally wore, I didn't have to carry, and 2 postcards from Vietnam. And
Wow.
knowing, like, upon leaving that you're not going to buy anything, that one decision made like 500 other decisions. Because every time I was like, that's a cute coffee table, it's like, well, you can't carry that, so you're not getting it. And just when I was preparing to talk to you today, I thought, man, that's like what the motto should be, like, only keep what you're willing to carry. Because that's what it was in the trip. And, not just physically carry, but, as you're simplifying your life, everything that you keep, all these different elements of our lives, these projects, appointments, social sort of commitments, clutter, even a long to-do list, you don't feel like you're carrying it, but really you are carrying these things, and they begin to weigh on us. So yeah, I don't know. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense, and you said it very well. So what'd you do about it? What are you doing?
Okay, so here's part of it. So I listened to this Bible Project podcast about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and like the tree of life in the Garden of Eden. And they made this really interesting point that helped me in this like simplicity journey, or whatever you want to call it. And they were saying how, like, why were the 2 trees right next to each other in the garden? And it's because in our human condition, when we choose what God has for us and we choose life and choose good things, oftentimes, like, right next to that is other things that look good, or are other things that we have to refuse. So with the choosing, there's also refusal. And you have to walk past the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and be like, no, 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 won't do that. I'll eat from the other tree. And you have to do that over and over again. Like, he put it in the middle of the garden, and he had to continually refuse certain things so that you could choose what he had for you.
Mm.
And so I'm learning that in simplifying elements of my life, I have to be okay with, like, saying no to other things, and saying no over and over again.
That makes sense.
So
Yeah.
that's like the abstract, like, principle behind it, but practically I've just been making a list of all the ways that that's looking for me right now, and I can, like, start to share some of those if that's
Yeah, share the list. Tell us the
okay.
things.
Okay, so this is gonna go from, like, very just practical to more like I don't know, mental.
Where it's the important part, right?
Yes. Oh my goodness. A clear mind, like, creates a clear life. I'm so convinced of this. I took this organizational course, and they taught me some amazing things. It was like an online course. And a lot of it was getting, like, mental clarity, like just getting your head clear and light, and then
Mm.
stuff in your life falls into place. I'll share about that in a second. Some of the practical things that maybe will be helpful for ladies listening is, um, I moved all of our photos and, like, kids' drawings from the front of our fridge to the side.
Uh, hmm.
It's so simple, but, like, it was all cluttered and, like, family pictures and friends and stuff like that, and they're still on there. They're just not at the part where you look at all the time. And so there's just this visual white space, and it just feels better.
Hmm.
Another thing is unfollowing or, like, snoozing accounts on social media, or, like, deleting apps from your phone that you're not using. Like, I'd gotten really into doing nature walks with Max, and then there's, like, the ones where you can take a picture of a plant and it tells you what it is and stuff. But we weren't really using it, so I just, like, deleted that, and that felt nice. I think maybe you've mentioned before, like, unsubscribing from email lists using that unroll.me. That, have you mentioned that site before? Or maybe that was.
No, but I hear what you're saying about
Have you
social
heard of
media. I'm
that?
going to make a whole podcast about unfollowing and snoozing on social media.
Yes. It's
But
amazing.
yeah, unsubscribing from the stuff that you're not actually using is
Right.
huge.
Basically everything except for Torah Sisters email. Because those are, like, they're great content, and I, like, really look forward to getting those. But a
Yeah,
lot of
if you
stuff,
use it, keep it.
yeah, absolutely. And then if you don't, and then when you open your email, you'll be like, wow, this is all stuff that's interesting and helpful and I actually want, and not just, like, because I was just deleting things. I'd gotten on a list and I would just delete it when I got it. I'm like, why don't I just unsubscribe?
Yeah, it takes one more click. It's that old principle of just touch your mail once.
Yes.
And virtually, just touch it once. I don't need the Kohl's coupons all the time.
Oh my goodness, you're so right. That's so funny. Yes, I
Okay.
live in Ohio and there's that like acronym like only handle it once. My mom always says that when she's like trying to teach me how to be like a better cleaner upper. And she's like, just take this shirt and like put it where it goes and don't fold it and set it down and come back to it later. Handle it once. So that's definitely a good thing.
Ohio.
Yeah, Ohio. Okay, here's another big one for me because I love to cook and I love like sauces and garnishes and like 1,000 components, especially when people are coming over. We're like, we need 5 side dishes so they like really feel loved.
Uh,
Um, but I realize it's better to have a really simple meal with like a happy, peaceful me than a really complicated meal where I'm like yelling at everyone while I'm making it because I am stressed out.
Katie,
And,
that's really profound what you just said.
oh man, I'm trying to learn this, Amy. It's hard.
It is hard because we think that people are pleased with our acts of service, but I think they're more pleased with our just being all there, which I know you're going to talk more about too. So that's
Yes.
huge.
It's massive. We had dinner with this family just last week who have like 8 kids, I think, and another family who had several children. And the mom made this like giant pot of this really good like stew. And then I brought a side and the other family brought a side, and it was simple and so good. And I'm like, literally, there's one pot on the stove and it was like perfect and delicious. And we could just be with each other and talk. And she wasn't
Mhm.
like scrambling to do last minute prep. And I was like, man, I want more of that because I can fall into the trap of like, more is better, but more of your presence and attention is better. Because when you go somewhere like to someone's home, um, it's nice just to like talk and spend time together and be seen and heard and all that stuff. You're not thinking like, you know,
Yeah,
you're not like Iron Chef judging the food.
right. You're not a food critic.
Unless you're a
Yeah.
total mean person, but yeah. So that's that. Simpler meal. Um, oh, okay, here's one from the garden. So my tomato plants got totally out of control, and I was looking at pruning videos. And they were talking about pruning the tomato plants to one like leader stem and not letting all these offshoots go off of the plant, because every offshoot you have is like sapping energy from the fruit of the plant, and you'll actually make a more fruitful plant if you don't let all these little branches go off to the side. You can channel the growth into the fruit if you don't let so many competing stems grow. And so I like was out there like aggressively pruning it all back, and these are like very productive plants, like better than my ones last year. And it just seems like a principle for us too. It's like people talk about a fire hose or a pressure hose, where there's water coming through a very small opening. If you get that opening small enough with enough pressure behind it because it's focused, you can like peel the paint off a wall.
Mm.
But if you just have like a big open, nozzle, you're not going to have much impact, like literally, on whatever surface you're working on. So yeah, I was pruning those tomato plants. Same with our little evergreen trees that we planted. Some of them had a lot of the ones that were shorter that hadn't grown very fast had 2 leader stems, and we had to prune it down to 1, and then the growth just like shot up. So I thought it's probably true for us too, because I think we're
Mm.
like plants.
So how do you apply that? Do you mean like saying no to things and keeping your focus
Yeah.
on the things that the Father is telling you are most important right now?
Yep, for sure. I think one way that I applied it was like I always think of projects and things that would be fun to do and things that would be fun, like little homeschool preschool stuff with Max, or projects around the house, or I want to learn how to sew now, or now I want to learn how to like be really good with fermentation, or I need to like take this course about online marketing. But I actually just was like, are there things that Luke has mentioned that are really important priorities for our family or for Max that I haven't made the priority yet in like how I'm spending my day? And there were things like, work with him with like reading and stuff, and let's get first time obedience down, and the windowsills are dusty-ish.
Mhm.
So instead of resealing the countertops, let me just do that stuff first. And that helped me streamline my list to literally like how I spend my day. And I was able to put some other stuff on the shelf for a while, and focus on these priorities. And I don't know, I felt better because I knew I was doing things that would benefit our family and that he would be blessed by and he thought were important too. And yeah, it helped my mental load, I think. Just choose what to do next. That was kind of nice.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
How do you, when you say you put those other projects on the shelf, how do you make sure, do you care if they get lost and forgotten, or do you keep track of them? Do you use a list?
Okay, here's where I'm going to plug the organizational course I took. It's
Sorry
called
if I'm jumping
Steps.
ahead.
No, no worries. This is perfect. Perfect segue. I got an ad on Instagram and ended up buying this course because they were just like speaking my language. They were like, "Is your whole life clutter and piles? Are you just shifting your piles from one pile to another pile?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, yes!" And this class like changed my life. I highly recommend it. It's the company is called Learn, Do, Become, and their program is called Steps. It's like an acronym, like Steps to Everyday Productivity. One of the main things I learned taking that was they start you off by doing this brain dump where you're just literally writing down everything on your mind and in your heart. Everything from like take out the trash on Tuesday night to do core exercises postpartum to like we need to invite people over more. You know, everything on your mental load, get it on paper. And then they work with you to chunk that into sections. Like some of these things are appointments. Some of them are one-time tasks. You also have projects. You have routines and habits. You have errands that you need to run, and it helps you organize those items. And when it comes to projects, like something that is multi-step, that has a completion that's visible. So, like your Taurus sisters retreat would be a project, I guess, that's on your plate because you know when it's over. I guess projects have an end date, and they also have multiple components to like bring it to life.
Mhm.
So all these things that are projects, they have you write down in this document, and every month you choose 7 or 8 projects that fall into your personal life, your family life, and your professional life, basically. Total 7 or 8 things that you'll work on that month. And they help you break those projects down into like your next action to move each project forward, and it becomes very, very manageable. Um, but the nice thing about having this big projects list is that you can, I color coded mine. So I was like, these are the ones I'm doing this month. And then these are the ones that are next up. So as I cross things off, I'm going to, migrate a new project into my list. And these are the ones that are like a someday project where it doesn't really matter when I do it. It just would be nice to do. Like one of my someday projects is like learn how to make sausage. Like chicken sausage, of course, clean sausage. But
Right.
yeah, so you have your someday projects, and then some of the projects are even, they call it incubation, which means you're not even sure if you actually want to do it. It just kind of crossed your mind and you don't want to forget.
Hmm.
But so you have this list, you know what you're doing right now, and that kind of frees you up from feeling like you should be doing lots of other things right now. And then you know what you're doing next. So as you check something off, you're pulling a new project onto your list. And then you know what you're doing someday. You can just pull from it when you have some white space. And some things you might not ever end up doing, and that's fine too. And then you have a routine time where you come back and you look at your projects. And for me, that's like once a month. So at the end of the month, I'm like, how am I doing on these 7 or 8 projects? Can I check anything off? Can I pull anything forward? And that way things don't get lost. I keep mine in a Google Doc, and I reference it often so that way you have the stuff out of your head, but it's not out of your life.
Hmm.
Does
That's,
that answer?
yeah, that makes sense. I love hearing how other people keep track of that. And you and I are a lot alike because your work is closely entwined with your personal and your family because we work for
Yes.
ourselves. We're self-employed and we're self-employed in this like Taurus stuff. So it's
Right.
all kind of one giant package and it gets
Yep.
like it makes my head explode. And I'm gonna definitely check out that course. I also have a
Yeah.
paper planner from well, I won't say, well, from Anne Elliot. And so
Oh yeah.
it's really good and it's what she uses and she's a lady who gets stuff done. She
Yes.
knows how to prioritize because her like she has a million ideas and I have half a million ideas and you probably have a million ideas and we just
Yeah.
can't you can't do it all. So I really like the incubator list and stuff,
Yep.
and I use Google Keep like crazy, but it's a little bulky, and I'm trying to use paper more.
Yeah.
Do you like using paper planners and organizational tools, or do you prefer online? How do you do it?
The thing I'm doing right now is I use Google Docs and I have them on my phone. So another thing I learned from this course was the principle they call minimize landing spots. So they encourage you to, let's say you have papers all over your house, put them in one folder, like all mail, all bills, any pieces of paper are going to be in this folder. And then you have a time once a week where you go through and clear the folder and deal with each item so it doesn't pile up. And so similarly, I used to have little post-it notes and like little grocery lists and to-do lists everywhere. I had one in my journal, I had one on the fridge, I had one in the car. Like it was just too much and stuff was falling through the cracks. And so now I just keep in my phone on this Google Doc, and I can get to it from my computer too, a rolling grocery list, like categorized by produce, dairy, aisles, Amazon, or whatever. And then it also has my daily most important tasks, like 3 things or whatever. And that's worked really well for me because my phone's usually nearby and I can, if Luke mentions something or I need something for the kids, I just immediately write it down. I don't trust myself to remember anything. And that has been
Yeah.
a game
Yeah.
changer. And
Huh.
I just keep it updated and I'm referring to it every day. And that's helped me, just one place. But I've done paper planners in the past. I just like that it seems simpler to like update things in this system I'm doing right now.
Hmm. But use Google Docs and not Google Keep.
I do use Google Docs and just have some lists there that I'm like,
Oh,
that
interesting.
I'm editing all the time.
Interesting. I'm trying to work towards a system where I keep a lot on the computer, either in OneNote or Google Keep, but then throughout the week I use the paper planner. And then on
Yeah.
Sundays, I do all my transfer on Sundays for the whole week. I'm going to transfer everything from the digital, all
Mhm.
my to-do lists to a paper to-do list that I
Yeah.
can easily also open and carry around in my purse and things like that. So yeah, I mean, there's a ton of different systems, but and sorry, I probably took us off track. But the whole
No,
point
not
of
at all.
this, though, is still not to have, and this is what I'm going to have to remember, to have 14 Google Keep notes or 14
Right.
Google Doc notes is not the point. The point is to simplify and
Yes.
not have a burning huge need for 14 projects at one time and all of this and that
Yeah.
mental mindset of saying no. So sorry, get back to all these things that you were learning and teaching because you're helping me a lot.
Oh
Keep
man,
going.
it's helping me too. I mean, one of the things that I have to just do is know that, okay, I've seen this system work for me. Like the first week I put into practice all the stuff I learned from this course. When Shabbat hit,
Mm,
I felt so peaceful. I
nice.
felt like, yes, I got done the things that were important this week, and I don't feel burdened by what I didn't do and what I need to do next because each thing that's important has a designated time. Um, so okay, that's part of the mental thing of all of this. Is I used to feel often like, I have my 2 boys at home, and then we do the documentaries and just different creative projects and stuff. And so I do some work from home with that. And then I like, doing dabbling and homesteading stuff. And I would often have the feeling like when I'm playing Legos with the boys, like, oh, I should be cleaning something. Like the
Mhm.
house is a mess. And since we're in a tiny house, it's like 2 rooms.
Yeah.
So it gets very used and it can get dirty really quickly, but it can get clean quickly. But I'm playing with them, feeling like I should be cleaning. And then they're taking a nap and I'm doing work, feeling like I should be exercising. And then I'm exercising, feeling like I should be gardening. And it's exhausting because you're not 100% engaged with what you're doing, but it doesn't feel fulfilling either because you feel like you're not
It's
doing what you should.
stressful, really.
Yeah, it's stressful. And what's helped that is just saying during the nap, I'm only going to do computer work and I'm not going to feel bad about anything else because that's computer work's designated time. And
Mm,
when the boys are awake, I'm only going to spend time with them and we can do chores together or play outside or whatever, but I'm not going to feel bad that I'm not answering emails when they're awake because that's the time for that. And after dinner, when things are put up, I'm only going to like spend time with Luke, and I'm not going to feel bad that I'm not, you know, doing something else. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. And I'm not good at it. So thank you.
It's hard, but it feels so good. It's like a discipline. And part of it is choosing in advance when you'll do certain
Hmm.
things. So, well, here's
Well,
another.
even, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say with cleaning, like I was watching so many YouTube videos about like how do you be a good homemaker and like what's the best cleaning system, and what's working for me right now is to have, since our house is so small, to have each day like designated to a certain aspect of our home. So for example, Monday is windows. And on Monday, I'll just go through to all the window sills, inside, outside, and then I feel good. The windows are done. Tuesday is floors. Wednesday is deck, yard, and car. So on Tuesday, I'm not like, oh my gosh, I should be cleaning the bathroom tub because I know that's Thursday.
Right.
It just gives you this freedom. It feels so good. It's like you know things are accounted for, so you don't have to feel bad about not doing them all the time.
That's good. And I can vouch that you practice what you're preaching right now. Maybe not 100%, but
No, not
can I
100.
even tell them about scheduling this recording that we're doing, this call? So I asked
Yeah.
Katie to do a podcast with me, and I told her she could pick the topic and when. And my availability is really wide open right now. Although you're inspiring me to change that. Like I always tell people, I'm free all the time. I work for
Yes.
myself. I work from home. I'm free all the time. But maybe I need to start actually office hours. Anyway, brilliant,
Sure.
brilliant. And then so I asked you to do a podcast and I said when, and you said Tuesday mornings. Tuesday mornings, my kids are at grandma's.
Yep.
That's the time. And I thought that was really wonderful of you because that, of course that makes sense because you at least you need a quiet space if nothing else. But
Right.
that's your time to do projects like this. And it took us quite a while to connect because my Tuesday mornings weren't working for a while.
Hmm.
And you know what? That's okay. Like the world did not end if we didn't get this podcast done for a couple
Sure.
months.
Yeah.
What is the worst thing that's going to happen if something doesn't get done or it gets backburnered for a while? Nothing bad happens. So you did good.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Man, this is like I was just listening before we talked to you talk about having more peace, more shalom in your life, that podcast
Mhm.
episode that you just did. And
Yeah, this fits right in with that.
yes, I was like, man, we're totally tracking. And a lot of the like just friends that I've been talking to have been kind of craving more simplicity in their lives too, just because we have such an onslaught of information,
Mhm.
and with that expectations, and a lot of it's so good. But we're realizing that we have to be intentional about what we take
Yes.
in. Um, so that's another point actually. I love like was loving listening to tons of health podcasts and like business ones, and but I realized I was taking in information faster than I could implement it. And
Right.
so I was like learning new things like, oh my goodness, my adrenal glands need an overhaul, but I still just wanted to like make bone broth. Like let me just do that first and then worry about my adrenal glands later. You know, I think you can get addicted to like learning new stuff and being like, wow, this system will help me and I solved my problem. Meanwhile, there are lots of great, simple things that you already know that aren't being implemented. And when you keep getting more information, eventually it starts to just feel like heavy. Like, oh man, I'm just not doing any of this, you know?
Yep. And what you're saying, it really is a kingdom work that we're doing here by simplifying and keeping organized and being able to get to stuff quick and saying no to things that are not our mission from the Father. And that changes from time to time and being available. So the feasts are coming up. And I just told my kids this morning, I said, I have been working my tail off to
Yeah.
work ahead because that's what we have to do, right? It's like this giant prep day before Sukkot because I take
Yeah.
off the whole week, the whole time of Sukkot. I don't work. But then I have this giant load of prep work to do ahead of time.
Yep.
I'm getting it done. Yah willing, he's enabling me to work ahead and get it done, which is such a blessing. And I know everyone, excuse me, can't do that. But then I'm going to take off a bunch of time at Sukkot and I'm going to pour myself into my local community and my kids and make that feast for them as wonderful as I can. But it also makes us available, Katie.
Mm.
This is the Feast of Ingathering, and there are so many people coming to Torah, which you know full well because
Yeah.
of what you do. And we've got to have at least a little cushion in our mental space and in our hearts and in our actual just time, the tick tock of the clock every day. We might need some time to invest in people and make disciples and
Yeah.
show them Torah. And when we're running around like chickens with our heads cut off, we can't do it. We just can't do it. So I really love what you're inspiring us to keep working on, and we'll never get there. But keep going. I think you had more methods you were going to
Yeah.
get to.
And I just have to say, what you just said is so, that's so key for me right now.
I know it is. I know you're right there.
Being available to people and having like spaciousness, um, and being generous with your time, I think, is massive. But you can only do that if you have certain other things taken care of, or if you can just, be there present with them, or feel like, if somebody pops over, you can spend time with them and not be worrying about like, other thing. It takes a little bit of work to create that space, but we need to be available for people so we can like be a blessing, and like starting with the people in your own house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Here's my next point. So, when I was taking this organizational course and they have you start with this big brain dump, one of the nicest things that they had you do is just like cross off things that don't need to be done. Sometimes, like, not everything on your list even needs to be done. Like, Yeshua was amazing with this in a different way. Like, sometimes people asked him questions and he just didn't even answer. Or he answered, like, the question they should have asked, which I think is so funny. But it's like, not everything has to be done. For example, I had this fixation a couple months ago of, like, the perfect apron. Because, like, I like to wear an apron sometimes. And I was on Pinterest looking at all these beautiful aprons and Etsy. And then I realized I have this seamstress friend and I could actually design one and pick a fabric and she could make it like custom for me with exactly the right pockets. And I'm kind of short, it's like the right sizes. And I was like spending a lot of time, like a lot of my free time, like geeking out about aprons and frankly wasting a lot of time. And then I just realized, nope, no. I actually already have an apron. I'm going to cross this off my list. I don't need to be like going over to someone's house, having them custom fit me for an apron. I just need to hem the one that I have about 2 or 3 inches so it hits at a better place and I feel like it looks good. And it's over. And I just totally took that off my list and it felt so good. So maybe there are things for the ladies listening that, have been top of mind, but like actually don't even need to be done at all.
And that's part of the beauty I'm learning of letting those ideas incubate for a
Yes.
week, letting
Yep.
them collect a little dust and see if they're still shiny.
Yes, that's so good.
That's a good idea.
That's so true. What you were saying about simplicity, like in our faith and stuff, there was this quote in this book called Celebration of Discipline. It's by Richard Foster. I got it when I was in high school, so I don't even know like to what degree I believe in all of it or whatever, but it was good at the time. And there was this quote, I'm going to read it real quick. It just says, "Simplicity is freedom, duplicity is bondage. Simplicity brings joy and balance, duplicity brings anxiety and fear. The preacher of Ecclesiastes observed that God made man simple, and man's complex problems are of his own devising." That's Ecclesiastes 7:30. I'm not sure what translation, but the idea that we are, there's another quote in the book that says, like, the devil loves muchness and manyness and hurry and crowds and noise, and actually also, if you don't mind, while I'm reading things, I got a new Real Simple magazine last night, and there's this article called How to Be Less Busy. And this girl is writing about, or this woman rather, a book, The Phantom Toll Booth, and there's a character in it that's like a demon, and it's described as a demon of petty tasks and worthless jobs, an ogre of wasted effort, a monster of habit. He persuades the protagonist to do endless, pointless activities, such as moving individual grains of sand with tweezers. It says, if you only do the easy and useless jobs, you'll never have to worry about the important ones, which are so difficult. You just won't have the time. There's always something to do to keep you from what you really should be doing. And I was like, man.
Ouch.
Doesn't that seem so true?
Yep.
It's nuts. It's like really we're here to like seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and the other things will kind of roll into the right place and be taken care of. That's my weird translation, but um yeah, it makes you think, okay, how much of like what's filling up my day uh is part of kingdom work. And I, consider in that like mothering and
Hmm.
being part of your Shabbat, community and blessing them, and like then, all those sorts of things. And then whatever like vocation God's given you and stuff like that. Um, and doing it all with, a heart that pleases him.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I just think there's a lot of like a lot of fat we can like trim off. I don't know if you feel like that, but maybe that's how
Yes,
I can bring
indeed.
it. Yeah.
I'm loving this, Katie. Keep going.
All right, let's see what we got. Here we go. Oh, okay. So here's one that has to do with our latest work project, this book called The
Yes.
Truth. That, you know,
What's it about, Katie?
The Truth is an apologetics book. I think it's sort of refreshing because it's like a different Luke has like a funny sense of humor, and I hope that like comes across. But
Yeah.
he's an excellent writer and an excellent actually like fiction writer as well, and he studied journalism in school. He's incredibly creative. And so he's just talking about Torah, like the case for keeping Torah as a new covenant, person 2022, um, and why it's scriptural. And the book goes through about 25, I think, contradictions in popular theology that don't need to be. And it just takes those the verses that cause those contradictions and puts them back in context, and just helps us understand and articulate our faith in a fresh way, and like why we would live the way our Messiah lived by doing these things that some people think are like just Old Testament stuff. And it gives some very tight and concise explanations that we can use. And
Mm.
um, it relates to this simplicity topic because in writing this book, you have to take very multifaceted theological concepts and you want to streamline them into like a sentence. And that takes mental effort sometimes.
Mm.
And the way I would do it with him is sometimes he would come back from a day of writing and I would be like, okay, what were you writing about today? And he would tell me, and I would just ask him, what do you mean by that? What does that mean? Can you say that in a different way? Say that like you're saying it to Max. Max is 4. you know, and we would drill down with questions and questions and questions and questions until you get something that's so distilled that there's no jargon left and no like, useless words. It's just like the pure thing,
Mm.
hopefully.
Mhm.
And that was a hard exercise, but super nice because it feels good to have a clean way of understanding something and take all of the convoluted bits out of your head.
That's really good.
Yeah, it was fun to do that. And it helped me. It helped me in my faith. We learned things and we've um, refined different explanations and arguments. And I mean, when you're having Bible conversations with people, it can go so many places because the Bible is so big, and the topics and the history and the different ways of understanding things. And so the more clear you can be, to me, like the calmer I can be. Um,
Yep.
when I'm talking to somebody about something that I don't feel confident in my understanding of it, I'm more likely to get flustered or, frustrated. Um, but when you're talking about something that feels so familiar, like, I'm trying to think of an example. I don't know. Food or whatever, it can be such a calm conversation because you don't feel that like weight of proving something that you're not exactly sure about, you
Mhm.
know? So,
Well, it's going to be a really helpful book, and you're right about that's a good analogy and on your journey to simplicity that the Father put that there right then where you
yeah,
had to do it in order to minister with the book. We've all had those times where we get an email from someone in our lives
yep,
asking us, challenging us something about why we keep Torah.
yes,
Some concept. Maybe it's the Colossians 2 passage or a Galatians passage or whatever. They want to challenge us in some way. And
Yeah.
so we write back with our answer. And then you know what happens? They email back with 10 things.
Yes.
And that's when I
So
shut
true.
down. I just shut down. I'm like,
Like it's too much, too
and
much.
they're legitimate things to, or
Yeah.
concerns to flush through, but I'm like, it's too much. And we shut down, and so do they, because they can't handle it either. You can only do one thing at a time. So I'm excited for this book. Okay, before I forget, we're not at the end yet, but tell us the website where to get it before I forget.
Yep, everything is on thewaydoc.com. So
Okay.
doc like documentary. And then if you want to go right to the book, it's thewaydoc.com/the truth. And you can
All
watch the book
right.
trailer and read about it and pre-order at this point. And yeah.
Nice. Are there other points that you were going to make about your journey to simplicity?
Well, oh yes, okay. Here's maybe one last one. This is back to like the gardening thing. I get overzealous when it's time to like plant things. We have a very tiny house but a very big yard, and so this year our garden's bigger than our house. And I was so psyched to like try all these new vegetables and stuff. Really, we only love to eat like two or three of them, but I planted like 10 things. And I think in my subconscious, I was like, having a ton of tomato plants, I think I have like 80 or 90 or something like that, will be, will kind of like make up for a lack of care. It sounds
Huh.
horrible, but like if I have so many and I like semi don't weed, then it won't matter because I'll just be producing so much. Do you know what I mean?
Some of them will make it.
Yeah, some of them will make it, and like the fact that I have a lot will cover for my inadequacies as a gardener or
Your
whatever.
lack of attention to all of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that just was a massive mistake because if
Huh.
I'm not diligent and getting out there every morning and just doing like 20 or 30 minutes, you know, working on it and the boys are running around and stuff, then in 2 or 3 days it's overgrown and it's like this big jungle and I have to have send Luke in with the weed whacker. And so next year I'm gonna have a really small garden. I'm like, I should just have like 5 tomato plants and, you know, a little row of sweet potatoes. And I just want to pay so much attention to it and give it my full effort and have it not be something that I can't manage. Um, and that just is like, even having that plan is like revolutionary for me because I'm always like, bigger,
Mhm.
better, more next year. I want to grow our year's supply of corn or whatever. And changing my expectations, you know, it I think will help me.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, if you prune it and care for it, it's going to produce more fruit. Every single plant will have more fruit
Right.
without the huge volume of plants. That
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
And then I bet you apply that then to how we choose our projects to work on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
'Cause there's too
And
many.
oh, okay. This is like not a specific tip, but it's just a thought that's been helpful, like a mindset shift. And this, I don't know, this might be the last thing, I'm not sure, but um when I was first thinking about simplicity, I was thinking, yeah, if I simplify things, I'll have so much more free time. But I
Mhm.
realized like the goal for me now is not necessarily to like gain this massive swath of free time because I just don't even think that's realistic. And like maybe a lot of listeners like you have a bunch of kids or like you have stuff going on. Um, but the goal is like fulfillment in each moment, like knowing that you're doing something that's honoring to God and what you should be doing in that moment, and you don't have the weight of like what you didn't do, what you should be doing instead, what you have to do next, but like just being present and having fulfillment in your work. And because sometimes simple things are like difficult. Like simple doesn't mean easy necessarily. Like if you want to just start, I don't know, growing your own food or something like that. It's simple, like put a seed in the ground and then tend to it. But it's not necessarily easy, and it might fill up more of your time than just buying it from the store. Um, but it's like you know what you need to be doing. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So, yeah. So just knowing that you might not necessarily get more free time when you simplify your life, but the time that you do have will hopefully be spent in a more fulfilling way.
That actually makes a lot of sense. And you said something really profound. As Bible believers, our goal is not necessarily to have free time.
Right.
6 days we work, the 7th we have free time. And even
Yes.
and we rest hard. We all
Yes.
rest hard on Shabbats. And it's
Yes.
okay to do that. It's okay to really take naps, and because we still on Shabbat you also have time to worship and to do Bible study and to be with your family.
Yes.
But what you're doing, I'm gonna start doing some of this stuff. I have not been good about organizing my time. My life is so crazy, and it's wonderful, crazy. But I
Yeah.
need to start organizing my time so that I have a designated time to, serve my local body, like to write letters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the postcard lady. I sell all these postcards and I hardly ever actually mail any because, but if I more deliberately have a time where this is all I'm going to do during this time, this is the half hour that I spend on this thing, or even just 15 minutes where I
Yeah.
don't feel guilty doing other stuff. It's not free time, but it's meaningful time. And it's something that when I go to bed at night, this is a good day.
Yeah.
Not because I had free time. And what do we need to do with our free time? We should do some personal development, some personal spiritual growth,
Yeah.
but we don't need to like sit in front of the television
Yeah.
watch being
Right.
entertained all the time. And some is okay, but not too much. So that was really good what you said. What
Yeah.
else is on your list? Anything else you want to share with us?
Let's see. I think those are the main things, and I hopefully, yeah, this will help. Thinking like this will help us drill down and like make our time actually reflect what our priorities are, like as far as how much time we spend in the word too and praying and like things like that, that are important but like can get crowded out with just like lots of other little projects. I guess I put a little, how on your phone you can put limits, I think, on like how much time you spend on apps.
I wouldn't know.
I made my phone like lock me out of Pinterest, Instagram,
Oh,
Facebook after like a half hour for the day or something like that.
that's
And then I'm like,
good.
wow, like they're all grayed out, but I can jump in that Bible app.
There it is.
Which is really nice because you get these little pockets, might have a 5-minute window here or there. And like what really is on my heart, what's important is like to be spending time in scripture. I feel like, reading your Bible is a way of praying, right? Because you're listening to him. So if that's important, you might just need to put up a fence for yourself and like lock yourself out of Pinterest.
Yeah. Fences aren't always wrong.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're very useful. I think people look at what people tell me sometimes, and I imagine they tell you too. And I could look at you and say, "How do you get it all done? You're so amazing." Blah blah blah. And it's like, no, we probably are saying no to lots of things,
Yeah.
and we're putting up fences and things, and we're always learning our priorities. Like I don't have my priorities right all the time, and I screw up a lot with that, honestly. But I mean, the fact that you guys can write a book and do the gardening and do the things is because when you really list out those main things, it's just probably a handful of main things.
Yep.
And you're not doing 20 things. And you've probably told a lot of people no. So how does that go when you tell people and projects no, Katie? Does the world end? Do the relationships end? Do they get even upset?
It does not. And like I really don't like to upset people and stuff. I'm very non-confrontational. Luke is great with just I remember when we were first like dating at the church where we met in New York City, there was this a worship leader, Jason Upton, was going to come and do this concert. I don't know if people have heard of him, but and there was a really nice lady from the church, and she was in the lobby talking to people like, "Have you gotten your tickets for this Jason Upton concert?" And Luke just looked at her like super nice, and he's like, "I don't want to go to that."
There it is.
The world. I was like, is it even like allowed to be that honest? And he was like, it wasn't mean. And she actually laughed because it was so honest and surprising. But he was just like, no, I mean, I love his music, but I just am not gonna go.
Good
I
for
was like,
him.
who is this person? With this radical sort of candor. But for me, it helps to have kind ways of doing it and to know that when you tell someone that you can't do something that you legitimately don't have time for, it's loving towards them. You could say something like, I think this is an amazing project, but I honestly just don't have the bandwidth to give it the attention I feel like it deserves. But maybe like, if it comes around next year and like, the kids are a little older or whatever, like the situation might be different, please like let me know again if this comes up again. Um, but I want it, to be done well for your sake, and I don't feel like I can do that right now. Things like that keep the other person in mind. It's not just always selfish to refuse things. That actually can be a blessing. Um, to not take on something where you might potentially drop the ball. You know what I mean?
That's really good. And I try to remind myself that when I'm telling someone else yes to something. So when I tell somebody else, yes, I'll do this or that, I'm telling my kids no to something else probably. And
Yes.
I can't do that to my kids too much.
Right.
We all have to figure out where that line is, and it's different with different things. But that's the honest truth. And I wish I'd known that much when they were younger. Now
Mm.
my kids are teenagers now, and I feel like I'm just really figuring that out. So I have my regrets in that. But Katie, this was really good. We could probably have lots and lots and lots of talks about this, but I think you summarized a lot of your things really, really well. And I'll never forget at the last retreat, you taught us the word clarity. Do you remember when you taught us the word clarity?
Yes, I do.
Tell us what clarity is real quick.
Flirty is though it's those clothes that you wore maybe once. They're not quite clean. They're not clean enough to go back in the drawer, but they're not dirty enough to wash. They're flirty, and I
They're
have
flirty.
to. I'm excited to announce that I do have a hook for flirty clothes now, like the garden clothes or whatever. I'm like in them for 15 minutes, and then they're dirty, but they're not. Whatever. I have a
Because
place now for them. They're not on a chair anymore.
let me get it right. You have to Ohio your clothes.
Yes, only handle it once.
I've learned 2 words. All right. Kayte Abaffy, you are a delight. I'm happy to call you friend. Thank you for coming on and sharing all of this with the Taurus sisters. So, Taurus sisters, don't forget you can go to the way doc, the way, W-A-Y, doc.com. And that's where you can find out all their goodies to buy, and go buy something from them and support them. And because they're putting out really solid stuff that can help you in your walk and help us share our walk with other people, which is not an easy thing. And it intimidates a lot of us. And their tools are there to take out the intimidation and just make it simple for us and to point them to his word, most importantly. So thank you, Katie, and tell your husband thank you for all that you guys do and for coming on the podcast. And anything else you want to say other than adios?
Yes, I almost forgot. So I wanted to do a quick thing on our the pre-orders for the Truth book. So if anybody is listening from, on this podcast, I think I'll leave up for maybe a week just a coupon code for free shipping if you want to pre-order the Truth. I'll just do it like maybe for a week after the podcast goes live. You can just use the code Torah Sisters at checkout when you pre-order the Truth, and your shipping will be free. So the book will come out, I think October 30th is like the day that they will be shipping and stuff. So
All right, so today is September 13th. Why don't you have the coupon go for until September? Let's pick a date so people listening know when it ended.
good idea.
I'll put this up today. What day do you want to end your coupon code?
Let's do I'll do the 23rd. That's not this Friday, but next Friday, since
Okay.
we're like in the middle of the
And
week.
before the feast. Perfect. So until September 23rd, use coupon code Taurus Sisters at their website to get free shipping on the book, which is very awesome. Thank you, Katie.
Hey, this was so fun. Thank you for letting me talk and ramble, and I hope that something in there was helpful, and just thank you for doing this podcast and this community. It's so awesome.
All right. I love it. All right. Bye, friend.
Bye.